Why is the BMW M340i the car that everybody seems to be buying? The hype on the B58 and the tunability, or you're talking about reliability equal to Toyota, or the style that means it's right on par and on point with BMW. I too have experienced this car. I've reviewed it, I've driven them, I know people who own them, and I've owned older BMW 3 Series cars and can totally attest this is in fact the BMW to own. I'm going to share the reasons, the top, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as some of the key problem areas you're going to have to consider. You're going to find everything you need to know about the BMW M340i and why you need to buy one too. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. I've been a long-time BMW owner for many years. I've driven everything from 3, 2, 4 Series, X5s, X3s, you name it. I've reviewed just about every car and I've owned many myself. But there's something special about the M340i. Some of the 3 Series cars aren't always the same. There's some real reasons why it's worth spending the extra dough to get into an M340i. Many people say, oh, the N55 is a great engine. Bah. Many say the N54 is tunable. Yeah, but it's not reliable. But guess what? The M340i has the B58 and it's got all of that covered. Ask yourself this, how many of its competition actually has drivetrains like this vehicle? Yes, the B58, which is a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine, of course in 2026 has made it up to a 48-volt mild hybrid system. Now combined, collectively has an output of 386 horsepower and about 395 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 hits as low as 4.5 seconds for the rear-wheel drive or as low as 4 seconds and even quicker than that in some cases in the X-Drive all-wheel drive system. Quarter-mile times as fast as 12.3 seconds. That's blindingly fast with a limited top speed of 155 miles an hour or as high as 168 miles per hour, depends on how it's equipped. But better than that, you get the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, which I even had in my F-Type Jaguar. And I can promise you, it knows what you're going to do. It shifts, it learns your driving dynamics, and it learns the way you want to perform. It's reliable, it's quick shifting, it's almost as quick as a dual clutch gearbox, but it's absolutely dependable. It's one of the best. Everybody's using it. Jaguar, Alfa Romeo, BMW. We're even seeing it now in Rams and other vehicles. It's absolutely a glorious gearbox that's durable and very flexible. But would you believe a vehicle with just shy of 400 horsepower can still get amazing fuel economy as high as 30 miles per gallon on the highway? I mean, merely a few years ago, to get that level of performance, you generally needed a V8 engine, and to get that V8 engine, your fuel economy numbers were typically down in at 15, 16, 17 miles per gallon. So now you're getting all the performance, all of the durability, and as well as the economy. Now, there's been many enhancements over the year and pre-M340. So in other words, 2017s, 2018s, that initially came with the B58 was a great engine, but it wasn't until they came with the B58 in 2020 on the launch year that all of a sudden they changed everything. The fuel system, the cooling system got improved and revised, the bottom end of the engine, and now with heat encapsulation, it promises to keep those high and low temperature swings at bay, eliminating too much excess cracking and deterioration of the plastic parts under the hood. On top of it, in 2022, they even enhanced the mechanics even further and started to come out with a revised mechanical oil pump that actually had metal fins inside, because the early generation actually had plastic parts and there was a little bit of a prevalence of failure. That's why I would largely suggest going with something a little bit later and you get yourself out of the woods with some of those problem areas. But some of the key evolutionary year upgrades for these vehicles. Again, launch year was 2020 when it first came out. The B58 in that year had about 382 horsepower, absolutely immense. It was so quick, in fact, it outpaced the previous generation BMW M3. Wow. And you can have your cake and eat it too with all-wheel drive. It was a vehicle that was versatile. Drive in the wintertime. The M cars were almost impossible to do that with. 2021, all of a sudden they came out with a mild 48-volt hybrid system. That helped economy, performance, and really didn't draw back anything. It was absolutely a win. You wound up with smoother shifts, better economy, and that whole start-stop system was much more refined because of it. And in 2022, mostly everything stayed the same, other than, as I mentioned, you wanted to start targeting that year because you got the better and improved, more reliable oil pump. In 2023, you got a nice LCI upgrade. You get the curved display, better driver aids and assistance, and many of the electronics were just clearly a lot more refined. The iDrive system just seemed to work just a little bit better. I found it to be slightly less glitchy and everything was just cleaner, fresher. And in 2025 to 2026, most things stayed the same, 386 horsepower plus, some small enhancements. It felt like durability, some minor cosmetic changes outside, inside, detailing some of the plastics. It just felt a little bit more updressed. So the big wins were, of course, in 2020 on this first change for the M340, and then 2023, a major change with LCI and upgrades. So the general reliability is the next reason to talk about the B58 and the M340. It wasn't very hard to believe after owning these for a period of time that the reliability was on par with Toyota. When Toyota and the Supra was utilizing the same B58 engine, people started to really pay attention and recognize that, hang on now, if Toyota's using this engine, it must be good. The B58 is considered to be one of the most reliable engines BMW has ever produced. And because of it, with people that really enjoy the brand, but always felt a little bit of that guilt, a little bit of that you can't quite have your cake and eat it too, now with the B58, you get all of the whole 9 yards. Because on top of it, the ZF 8-speed that their BMW is using in just about everything from the 2 Series, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and up, and all of the X variations is using that same transmission. 8 speeds, predictable, small packaging, strong and robust. It had the torque capability to tolerate just about anything you could throw at it. Even a tuned engine, you would never burn out that transmission. BMW finally found the mark. Many manufacturers started using the ZF 8-speed because of its durability and flexibility for rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive capabilities. And unlike many vehicles these days that are set up on destruct mode, you don't have a lot of margin for tuning. This one does. There's lots of people out there tuning these for 6, 7, and 800 horsepower and beyond. The engine gets a 5-star. The transmission, 5-star. Electronics, 4-star. That's pretty good when you're talking about a German luxury vehicle that merely 10 years ago, people were swearing and cussing with coolant leaks, oil leaks, bad window regulators, electronic gremlins, air ride suspension issues. Guess what? These cars had very few of those issues, but they're not perfect, and we'll get to that. JD Power, on the other hand, says the 3 Series is typically 81 out of 100 for overall quality and reliability. And on top of it, Beamer Boom says that it gets a 4 out of 5 in terms of reliability, specifically because this car has gone vastly better than any of its predecessors. Consumers Reports also now rates this BMW at about a 78 out of 100. Now, that being said, there are some caveats, and it's generally the first model year that they've had a few glitches. A couple years go by, and then all of a sudden there's a realization that there's some oil cooling issues, and then more time goes on, and the oil filter housing issues creep in there, and there are some challenges, but overall, a pretty reliable vehicle. To me, in my own personal opinion, recalls are a strong indication, because if they didn't get it right out of the factory, and you've got to now pay the price as an owner and take your valuable time to drive that car down to the dealership to take care of a recall, well, that is not a good scene. And so there are manufacturers that are struggling with dozens of recalls. Just ask Ford how that's working out, or Stellantis. BMW only has a couple of minor recalls. The 2020 340, there's a potential fire risk because of the starter motor could overheat. And there was approximately 145,000 or more vehicles in the US that were associated with this particular recall. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they also claim even though there's one recall, there are a few complaints and commonalities that they're finding with the ownership experience with the 340. Oscillations in the steering, a lot of that has to do with the all-wheel drive system, which we'll get to in a moment. Brake-related concerns, electrical faults. There are other issues that have been creeping up very recently. Some of which, of course, now there allegedly are some people taking action, class action lawsuit associating and suggesting that BMW knew all about some of their issues with their oil filter housing challenges. Coolant and oil leaks mixing, creating all kinds of milkiness, catastrophic failures, cracking within the housing, expensive repairs. Other people suggest that a lot of their vehicles are burning through coolant. There are 2 tanks, in fact, and many people find themselves constantly having to add up a little bit. On top of it, have you heard the latest with the all-wheel drive system and some of the transfer cases in some of these modern late model BMWs associated with some kind of premature failure, but coincidentally seems to be happening just slightly out of warranty for some. Now, it's not happening in large numbers, but again, there are some recommended maintenance practices associated with that. And if you decide not to use the products that BMW recommends, you might be taking on that risk. The next series of well-known issues aren't enough to deter customers and owners of these cars because even though they're not necessarily insignificant, the car is so great in so many other ways, many people just overlook the fact that there are a few little troubles. Coolant lines, water pumps, thermostats. But remember, the water pump now is a mechanical water pump, so it's far more durable and far less problematic. So that's been improved, as well as the heat encapsulation system reduces the amount of cracking and deterioration of a lot of these cooling lines, but that is a potential issue. Also, why did BMW put the timing chain on the firewall again? They did. A few electronic gremlins have been also noted, iDrive systems or some of the sensors. In general, brake wear hasn't been noted to be all that good. It tends to wear out a little bit prematurely. But again, that tends to come with performance vehicles or vehicles that carry a higher velocity, and you've got to bring them down from speed. And I know the review I took on that M340i, I was absolutely amazed at the burbles, the sounds, the acceleration, and the braking capability. It's absolutely nothing shy of amazing. Back in M again here, or sport mode. It doesn't have a true M feature, but it does give you the sport capability, the extra dynamic setting, they say. So again, it gives you a sharper performance overall, and it just does feel more sprightly. Now, see, it goes to these aggressive shifts, and that's the car doing it. That's not even me. That's the ZF 8-speed doing that magic. That's the 8-speed auto doing what it does, is knowing what the driver wants. And the tuning on this transmission is absolutely impeccable. So here we are, sitting at a lights. Let's just try this here and go for go mode. So you can do this I can do it manual mode. Now I shift to manual, up, manual, 3, 4, 5. See, it's just, it's super easy to shift. In manual mode with the shifter, I can toggle back over to auto mode, and of course I can use the paddle shifters at Hawk. I can just start pulling gears. It's such a versatile package. There have been some 48-volt mild hybrid related issues, and some of the starter generators in a very small amount of cases have been known to fail. Generally speaking though, the vehicle is very robust. The B58, if well maintained, is reliable and can take high levels of tune, and many enthusiasts are saying they can throw hundreds of horsepower on top of it and not have any issues. And the bottom end, because of the forged capabilities, have the power and performance and structural rigidity to tolerate that level of tune. Now the G20 has what they call the CLAR platform. This essentially is the cluster architecture platform, which features a use of high-grade steel and aluminum. It also has McPherson struts up front and multi-link rear suspension there. You also get hydraulic dampening to better absorb the bumps and bruises over these rough roads. BMW also says it's got a flat bottom, which helps reduce its coefficient of drag and cut through the air much, much better. Now, another indication why these vehicles are so popular, it's depreciation. To me, that's telltale, right? If you have a vehicle that does not depreciate, there's something going on, something that makes you really take a second look and wonder, why is this car holding its value so damn well? Depreciation on average in 5 years of a B58 power drivetrain car like this is only between 30 to 40% depreciation in 5 years. Compare that to the rest of the industry that's closer to 50-55% depreciation. On top of that, in 10 years, it's only been known to lose as much as 50 to 60% of its original value. Whereas by 10 years, time's rolling around on a lot of its competition, they've whisked away 70, 75, in some cases 80% of their original value. These B58s and the M340i specifically has a tuning capability, the durability, reliability, and the style that everybody seems to want. That's why people are paying more for these vehicles, and that's why everybody's buying them, holding the value very, very high. Now, another strong indication why the M340i is selling so well, 5 of its closest competition, the Audi S4. But we know the S4 isn't what it used to be. It's a shell of what it used to be. Audi isn't really producing vehicles for the enthusiast. It's more for the posers these days. And while there's some great Audis out there, I've said vehicles like the RS3 and the TTRS are clearly the best. Same thing with vehicles like the R8. The RS7, also a great car, but almost everything in between is a little watered down in my own personal experience, and that's why this vehicle doesn't compete directly with the M340 if you really love the driving experience. It's also not as reliable, and it doesn't hold the same value. The Mercedes-AMG C43. I love that. It's wonderful. It's probably the closest thing to the B58 in the M340. That C43 Mercedes-Benz, the older generations that had that 3-liter twin-turbo V6, was one of their most reliable, most capable, and best-sounding V6 engines, actually almost in the industry. That said, some of the durability of the Mercedes-Benz in that generation, the W205, wasn't necessarily the best. It tended to get rattly and flaky inside, parts seemed to wear away, and it just doesn't hold up all that well. So overall, structurally, it's not as robust a car. The BMW seems to hold up better, won't rust, It has better performance, better tunability, and better reliability. A third one is the Acura TLX Type S. I love this car. I absolutely do. Sadly, it has gone away. Acuras haven't been selling all that well. It seems though a real enthusiast that want a hot vehicle like that, a true authentic driving experience, seem to always gravitate to the BMW. Acura has a wonderful car. The Type S is truly one of my favorites. Nobody's buying them because the BMW edges it in every single way. Better gearbox, more power, better staying power in terms of overall depreciation. That's why people keep buying the BMW over even the Acura. The Genesis G70, BMW's got it beat on every account. No questions asked. And then the other one, the Lexus IS 500, you could maybe even make a case for the IS 350. 500 is a V8, makes 472 horsepower, so it's way more up on power over the BMW, but then the 350 has more like 311 horsepower, so it's down. So the BMW falls somewhere right in the middle. But again, the BMW has tunability with the turbo, it has a better torque curve, and it has more of a draw to the enthusiast crowd. The person that really wants a driving experience is going to go with the BMW. The Lexus IS 500 is only rear-wheel drive, whereas the 350 is all-wheel or rear-wheel drive, but the BMW seems to cover off all bases. And with a mild tune for about $2,000, you can blow the doors off an IS 500. So then we have to talk pros and cons. Some of the pros of these BMWs are, it has one of the best elite engines, the B58. It also has extremely fast. It's actually quicker than the outgoing M3. It's also a daily driver. It has sports performance. It sounds pretty cool. But some of the drawbacks on these cars, unfortunately, we have to bring it up. Expensive maintenance, especially once the warranty's gone. You definitely have to be very cognizant of the model year you buy. 22 and above, you're probably the safest. First model year, you're probably going to see the most problems. The other issues, technical glitches. BMW electronics, there are issues. Window regulators, pricey maintenance, shop fees, $250 an hour shop rates, very expensive. And on top of it, it's not quite as special as the true M cars. These are considered the M Lite, and as a result, you're always in the shadow of the true M cars. And many people unfortunately look at it that way, and as a result, it doesn't quite get the same street cred. This gives you the flexibility that you can get for all-wheel drive. It has the room, space for 5, and it looks wonderful. It's truly one of BMW's sweet spots. It's a car that can run 250, 300,000 miles if it's looked after, and it's truly a gem, that little shining gem of a spot for the BMW history. Forget about the N54, it's trash. The N55 isn't much better. The M340 or any of the B58 powered 3 Series cars are truly a gem. Are there other vehicles that carry the same drivetrain? Yes. Of course, you can get it in a 5 Series, 6, 7 Series vehicles. This is the best package. You don't have all of the extra air ride and all of the other extra tech. This is a simple, most popular package that BMW has produced yet. If you want to see more about the only BMWs I would buy, right there, this year in 26, those are the ones. But we're talking about Lexus, probably one of the best competitors. Those are the only Lexus vehicles I would buy in 26 as well. Don't forget to subscribe to this lovely channel. We're still trying to build this nonsense, right? Hope to see each and every one real soon. Catch you then, everybody. Bye-bye.